Welcome back to Clear Cut. British Prime Minister Theresa May is addressing anti-Semitism in the UK. The Prime Minister addressing the country's Jewish community on the eve of Yom Kippur. Let's go now to our UK and Europe correspondent, Jonathan Sacerdoti, who's live for us from London. So, Jonathan, what did she say about anti-Semitism?
Well, following the recent ongoing crisis within the Labour Party concerning unchecked anti-Semitism, this evening Prime Minister Theresa May delivered a speech directed at the Jewish community in which she said that she stands with Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people and also with the entire Jewish community in Britain. She made reference to Jewish people here who are fearful of their future in the UK, with a recent newspaper poll saying that 85% of British Jews believe that the leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, is an anti-Semite. She said, quote, "One of the things we need to do is give young Jewish people the confidence to be proud of their identity as British, Jewish and Zionist too. There is no contradiction between those identities," she said, and we must never let anyone try to suggest that there should be. And she went on to call it sickening that anti-Semites try to, quote, abhorrently suggest Israel is a racist endeavour. Remember, that's something that the Labour Party leader specifically wanted to reserve the right to do when his party voted on a definition of anti-Semitism recently. And she spoke also about the UK's ties with Israel, saying that she wants to build the strongest and deepest possible relationship between the two countries as Britain leaves the European Union. She said she wants to see an ambitious free trade deal between the UK and Israel.
Yeah, the poll numbers on how Jews in the UK feel now, that's pretty remarkable. How is the Labour Party handling these continuous accusations against Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, the Labour Party is still struggling with this, even with some Labour members of Parliament speaking out openly against the anti-Semitism in their own party, and even against their own party leader. Jeremy Corbyn himself more and more seems to be suffering from scandals coming out every week. Just yesterday, a large protest took place in Manchester, organised by 33 organisations campaigning to end anti-Semitism, particularly in the Labour Party. The chief rabbi, Ephraim Mervis, spoke, as did Labour MPs, Dame Margaret Hodge and Dame Louise Ellman, both of whom have been outspoken about their own party's anti-Semitism problem.
Got it. All right, let's switch gears and talk Brexit. The head of the International Monetary Fund, she's warning against a no-deal exit from the European Union. Explain what a no-deal exit is and tell us what she had to say about that.
Well, the UK is still in negotiations with the European Union to arrive at a deal under which the UK will leave the Union. If they're unable to come to a deal, which both sides agree on, then the so-called no-deal situation kicks in, and there isn't much time left for them to agree on those terms. It isn't, in fact, a no-deal arrangement at all, but instead it'd see the UK trade with the European Union under World Trade Organization rules, as it does with other countries where there is no special trade deal in place. But many say this would be disastrous for both sides, and so far it hasn't been seen as a realistic possibility, even though the UK has threatened it as a fallback position. But with Theresa May now struggling to unite her own party behind her proposed deal, just over 6 months before the exit will happen, it seems less of an impossibility that the UK may go out on a no-deal basis. And Christine Lagarde, managing director of the International Monetary Fund, said that all outcomes would be bad for the economy, but had this to say in particular about a no-deal Brexit.
Now, clearly, if that was to happen, our assessment is that it would have very dear economic consequences. It will be a shock to supply, and it would inevitably have a series of consequences in terms of reduced growth going forward, increased deficit, most likely, depreciation of the currency, and it would, you know, in reasonably short order, mean a reduction of the size of the UK economy. So that's why we think that it would have dear economic consequences.
And Philip Hammond, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Treasury Chief in the UK, also says that he believes that a no-deal Brexit would be disastrous for the country, possibly setting it back 10 years.
All right, very quickly, London's Mayor Sadiq Khan also weighing in on Brexit. What did he have to say?
Well, Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, the Labour Party mayor, had previously said that he wasn't in favour of a second referendum as it would be undemocratic. But he's now come out and said that he'd like there to be a second vote for the electorate to decide between the eventual deal the UK agrees to with the EU and the option of not leaving the EU at all, after all. While there are calls for this from some politicians, they more or less exclusively come from those who campaigned not to leave in the first place. So it seems most unlikely that will happen. And this is just a last-ditch attempt on their part to stay in the EU despite that majority vote of the UK electorate to leave. And Prime Minister Theresa May has ruled it out herself.
All right, Jonathan Sacerdoti there in London for us. Jonathan, thanks for that report.